Hello, 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 and welcome back. Hey, and how you doing? Today is part two of my conversation with Nicole Vick. Hey, Nicole, how you doing today?
I am doing well. I got my head wrap on, got my Black Women Lead t-shirt on. I'm ready. Let's do it.
I love that. I love that. So first, you need to let me know, where'd you get Black Women Lead T-shirt? Because I did just find Power Black, and I did just get I'm classy, but I cuss a little, and then I got another Black woman shirt. But where'd you get that? Tell everybody where we got that shirt from.
So this shirt is from an organization called Higher Heights, and it's an organization that helps Black women become policymakers, run for office, all that good stuff. So Higher Heights is their website, and I think this was probably one of their ways that they raise money for their organization, but I'm sure they still sell them. And I love them. I have a pink one,
Hey, because that's what we do, right? Because Black women lead, and that's what we do. And one thing I think is it's so cool that you have that shirt on today, because, when we think about where we are in terms of any indicator of health, whether we're talking about economic health, whether we're talking about social health, whether we are talking about mental health, physical health, that same conversation, right, around those pieces all require that we jump in, that we do something, that we lead. And then when you look around and you say, okay, who is doing these things and how are these things happening, you see them being led by Black women. You see that right now, Black women are the highest percentage of the population that are starting their own businesses, that are becoming entrepreneurs, that are leaving corporate and other, formal institutions that are, PWI or primarily white institutions. And we see Black women leading.
Yes. Absolutely, and I love it. Even here in Los Angeles, where I am right now, we have a Black woman on the county board of supervisors. We have Black women that are running for office at the state level. We have a Black woman that is running for the mayor of Los Angeles. And you might say, well, that's just mayor of Los Angeles. That's, not a big thing. Do you know that Los Angeles has like one of the largest economies in the world? And so if this Black woman, who actually many years ago started an organization here in South LA called Community Coalition, if she becomes mayor of Los Angeles, think about how powerful that is. And she's currently running against a developer, someone that has a lot of money. And it's like, okay, so which direction come on, City of LA, I need you to, understand the assignment. Let's vote for the right person. We'll see. I don't know. You know how things are these days. Up is down, down is up. I don't know.
It really is, but it shows you though how there's such an amazing opportunity to really do something great. Like, just imagining, because you said it's Karen Bass, right? Yeah. Who is amazing. Her being the mayor of Los Angeles, that would change the game. That would change the game, because it wouldn't be just about developing and how do you make more money for rich people. It would be about how do we help the community and the people who are already here. How do we help these people build and thrive? I can just imagine, because I follow Karen. So okay, let's back up, because me and you didn't really have our deep down politics conversation yet, like our rooted politics conversation. So you knew I grew up on the East Coast, so I grew up in Philadelphia, and because my family is fortunate enough to be a college family, I'm like, several generations of college, but they went to HBCUs because that's where we could get in right back then. But I started reading very early, and I started following politics very early. And I don't know, had my, my aunts, my great aunts and great uncles who had went to, Howard and all those schools, if I hadn't gotten an interest in politics because of their background. So because of that, I've always followed politics. Like I always tell everybody, Jimmy Carter was my first president. Like literally I followed politics from him forward, right? And so anytime there was a black woman, Shirley Chisholm, can I tell you, every year I was writing reports on her. I was always trying to see what else she was doing. Oh, she wrote a legislation about this. Oh, they ignored that. She did this. They ignored that. Shirley Chisholm I mean, can you just imagine if she would have been the first Black woman president?
Trailblazer. So far ahead of her time. Like, what? Oh my gosh. It would have been so amazing, but
Right, right. So because of like people like Shirley Chisholm, because of people like Barbara Jordan, because of people like there's tons. I know Karen Bass, and I followed her, and I remember even in Obama years and before the orange person, when they were running for president, that's when I really started watching her, and she was speaking up against Garcetti, and it's a lot of corruption, and when you think about how, I hate to say it, but it's true, but the men that have been in charge of all these systems, all these organizations, all these institutions, all this time, and they've been doing the same stuff, been making the same mess, been keep from doing the same thing. And we really need to, as Black women, say, you know what? Stop waiting for other people, and we need to lead ourselves. So I'm super happy to hear that that she's doing that, and let's keep in touch about it, and I will be happy to promote, to tag, to do what I can on my end, because it's important that those kind of people are put in position because they represent the real people, right? So if you telling me some big developer is trying to come to Los Angeles, right, and he wants to be the mayor, okay, so which reminds me of, so when I went to Hawaii this year, Honolulu has a white mayor.
That's interesting. I didn't know that.
I'm like, how does that even happen? How and their governor is white. Yeah. So their senator is Hawaiian, but why? How would their officials be white? They're not from there, so they came there and they bought votes, and then they became in power. Yeah. So that's what this same developer is trying to do in LA. But I was astonished by that, and I was talking to the Hawaiian people, and I would say the Hawaiian people that I talked to, I would say 60% were Hawaiian Islanders, but the others were different, mixed Asian, a lot of Filipino, Vietnamese, Filipino mix and stuff like that. Koreans, of course, but mixed, right? But I was just asking all of them, like, how would y'all have white government officials on your island?
Yeah. Well, the whole history of Hawaii, and I don't even pretend to know all of it, but the Dole pineapple, industry, and how, Hawaii really just kind of got turned into what a lot of other communities get turned into. One minute it has this culture and this flavor and its soul and this whole, way of living. And then, oh, wait, there's a way to exploit that. We're going to come over there and do that. Let's do that. And then next thing you know, it's not what it was. And then the people are like, what happened? And it almost to the point, well, not almost, to the point where people, the Native Hawaiians are like, don't even come to Hawaii. Don't come here. Don't, degrade our resources. Y'all is taking everything. So it's really been this pushback by that culture. Like, stop coming. That's okay. We good.
And I felt it for them. And I was like, and nobody is like that towards Black people because they know, right? They love us, right? Because they know. But even when I went to Latin America, it was like I said, it was just like, where do these white people come from? And so it's so interesting. But what I think it also does is I think it speaks to the conversation that we were having in part one around, looking at things from an individual, holistic kind of standpoint, but in that community and collective way, and understanding all of the different factors that really play into what public health is and how it all comes together. So, I think, we had a part of the conversation, right? We talked about what those pieces were, and part of it also was really around how we do as individual people have power in these systems, right? So maybe if we think about, as being leaders, as being especially leaders in our community, in our doggone families, right? How do we step up in the public health realm, right? In those different areas, in that place, even if we say, let's just get it in where we fit in, right? So like I'm a communications person, okay, right? So then that means I can use my voice, right, to communicate, things that are important. But what are some things other people can do?
A lot of things. I've been reading a lot of articles lately about gentrification, the changing of neighborhoods, and it's really scary. And I think a lot of people aren't aware of how these things work. And one of the things, I just read an article early this morning about a community here called West Adams, how one developer literally has 40 different properties that he's bought over the years, and they're just flipping them, just redeveloping around the existing community. And everybody's like, what's going on? And one thing I thought to myself, I said, self. I said, self.
That's what I do. I be like, self, come on now.
I'm like, the sad part about this is all these shifts and changes to this neighborhood will probably happen 10 years ago when nobody even noticed. Nobody even noticed what was happening when those properties were underdeveloped and were being sold for, nothing. That those developers are scooping them up and holding them. So I think a lot of it is about being aware. Another quick story about that. I worked at a health center in South LA, and when I saw that Starbucks come, everybody was like, "Oh my gosh, a Starbucks!" And I was the only one that said, "This is bad news. This is bad news." So your property now, if you own it, you better hold on because everything around you is going to change.
That's right.
So again, as far as being involved, you have to start paying attention to what's happening in your neighborhood. It can be as simple as getting to know your neighbors by name and having conversations about what's happening in your community, and then figuring out a way to get involved. There are churches in your community. There are organizations that are doing the work. Align yourself. If you can't do that, because people have different levels of involvement. They ain't got time. They got 2 jobs. Got it. But if there's something that you can do with your skills and talents to be engaged, definitely do it. The other side of that is voting. And again, we talked about this, not the presidential elections so much. We're talking about local, your city council, your neighborhood council. Some communities have neighborhood councils. Go to those meetings and find out what's going on and what's happening so you can have a voice. Because if we don't say anything, and I already said this last week too, if you're not at that table,
you on a menu. Look, I am doing my new, branding and my new stuff. I got it already on the thing. Nicole Vick. I quote it. Because that is true in every aspect. And, it's funny. So, I live in a newer community. Well, I shouldn't say that. My community is a farm community. Literally farmers. Literally boom farm that I can see. Now, I can't throw far. Even if I had a football, I couldn't throw, nobody could throw a football as far as they are, but I can see them from where I am. So my development is new. My development was built in 2020, and mine is the last house. So because it's the last house, it's closer to the old development, which is just on the outskirts of the farm land, which you could see for miles. There's a golf course here, wow. And then over there, and there's wineries and everything, because I'm in Oregon, okay? So when I get on my little local mailers and stuff, right, like one I got over there right now, it got the people running for office, and they got on, little Jim Bob got on his flannel, little whatever, and it's just a picture somebody took in the backyard of him, right? But he is going to be running for something, right? And you need to know what he's about, and figure him out. Because if you live in that neighborhood or that community, especially if you have children that are young, you want to know what kind of laws and rules and things are being made, right? So that you know what's happening. So I moved here, and I'm probably the only person that doesn't have kids, because I think the whole neighborhood is full of kids. Because I guess only people with kids buy new houses, right? Old people don't really buy new houses. I kind of thought about that, how come it's and my neighbors are older. My neighbors next to me are my age. and they have kids in college or grown kids or whatever. But anyway, there's little kids. So I always think, who do I need to pay attention to vote for? Yep. If you have kids, you need to pay attention to the school board. If you own anything, or even if you're renting or leasing, you still need to be paying attention to the district attorneys and the sheriffs and those other offices that literally could be Billy Bob living down the street. And even if you live in a big city like LA or a city like Philly, where I grew up, you need to know. I remember, Dwight Evans, who is a rep in Philly, U.S. House of Representatives. He's been a representative since I was a kid. I remember he used to come over on Saturday morning. I was like, no, man, I'm watching Soul Train. You could talk to my mom. And I would be like, don't be coming at 12 o'clock with your whatever. We know we good. We know what you talking about. He want to, sign this petition and talk. Oh. Yeah, but that's how it started. So back to, me being in love with Shirley Chisholm and me knowing who Karen Bass is and Barbara Jordan and, following, every woman politician in America, because knowing how we have to bring all these pieces together, but really helping people be educated about the things they need to be aware around.
Right.
I'm concerned about we are so distracted with so many things that we are unable to have awareness and focus around some really, really important things. So like this is April 28th. Literally, I know my state has a primary. I think this is 22. So at least 14 states, 18 states got primaries, right?
I think so.
It's a good amount. It's a good amount.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of people, again, and to be fair, a lot of people got other things going on. There's a lot going on. People are trying to survive. People are trying to make it from day to day. And so sometimes some of these things don't really, land on people's radar. But I also will say, and I know you probably agree, a lot of times the complication of policy, politics, and legislation is on purpose for people not to get it. Oh, well, I don't understand this. This seems so foreign to me. I don't know what this is. So, I don't blame you. I wouldn't try to get involved either. I'm like, I don't understand. I don't even understand. They write the propositions in a way where it's like, well, does yes mean yes or does yes mean no? I don't know. So you get, I feel like sometimes these things are confusing on purpose to really, steer things a certain way. And if you don't get it, you miss out and something happens in your neighborhood and you're like, I don't never signed up for that. Yeah, you did, so I think a lot of that stuff is confusing on purpose. Government is not, and politics are not always accessible to people. And I just don't know, I can't sit here and say it's an accident. I don't think it is.
It is. And as soon as you said that statement, the first thing that came to my mind is, and it's the incumbents. So any person that's an incumbent right now, those are the ones, cause I got my pamphlet yesterday. It was this thick. Cause we have mail-in here. My pamphlet was like this for a primary. And I live in a different community than the last time we had a primary. I live in a different community last time we had different kinds of elections, right? So things are different. But I said to myself, okay, if I was one of the families with small kids, if I got 2 little kids, do I have time to read this? Even if I have 1 kid and a job, do I have time to read this in my leisure? Not something this thick. Yeah. And so it is on purpose. And so at the very least, I think what people can do is evaluate the incumbent and look at how things are going right now. Has anything gotten better for you in the last 2 years in your neighborhood, in your school, your police, your fire, your mail, your local stuff, your zip code? In your zip code, has anything gotten better? If not, get rid of that person.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I think that's especially if they've been in more than 3 or 4 terms. Now, if it was their first term in and they didn't get anything done, and it's a 2-year term, okay, maybe you can give them a shot. But like these
career,
these career politicians that's been 12 and 14, 18, 22 years and all this nonsense, and you living in a poor community and your community is just as beat up as it was. You don't have a grocery store like we talked about. You don't have, you can't get a Trader Joe's up in there. I don't give a damn about a Whole Foods. They can, what they can do for me. But I mean, come on.
Or your bus line, you don't have your metro system, is not working for you, or you do. It's important to figure out what's going on, who's in charge, who's responsible, and push back. And I think we also forget that they are working for us, and we can call the city council office, we can call the county whoever office, and say, hey. There's something going on down here, and it's been like this for X amount of days or weeks or months. Can somebody come fix this? I mean, they have to respond.
Right.
As far as I know, so it's like you just have to really start to realize and recognize that their job is to work for you. But again, if it's complicated, if you don't speak the language, if you can't read the materials, again, it's a way to keep you separated from that kind of stuff, and it can be very hard to navigate. So
it really is. It really is. But I think, that there is such a great opportunity for us to put our power that we all have, right, into action and say, you know what, bump that. So, like we had a little bit of a conversation about, how these large corporations, don't want their companies workers to unionize, right? But that's only because they are just being so super greedy. But this is what you could do. Let's say you work for any fast, quick service chain, any of them, it doesn't matter. You can start talking to the people on your shift. Yep. And you can say, hey, how much you making an hour? Yep. I'm making $7.55. Well, I'm only making $7.35. Well, let's ask this next person and this next person and this next person. And then you're looking at the work. And then you're looking at the supervisor. And then you start looking at who is who and who look like this versus who look like this. And you start talking and y'all start figuring out, it don't matter. We all look like this. We all making around $7 or $8. There's a problem here. Yeah. When those billionaires have made more money since the pandemic than they have ever made in all of that time. And manufactured all of that supply chain. They manufactured all of it. So people would just buy, and buy. And it worked.
It's horrible. And one of the things you talked about that I think is really important is that idea of we need to get comfortable with sharing our salaries. And I think there's been some sort of push for people to be transparent about that, because that's how you find out, to your point, wait a minute, I do the same job as John over here. Why am I getting paid $15,000 less than he is? But you don't know that because you're not having a conversation. Now, where I work, I work in government. That's a non-issue because everybody's salary is public.
It's public.
My name and type in Nicole Vick salary, and the government website will tell you what I make. So in the government, I think in one way, that's one of the equalizers there. Like, we know what everybody makes.
Right, because you know how much the president makes. You know how much the senators make. You know how much male people make. You know how much every person has a government job. Right.
But in private industry, you don't know because, we've been taught we don't discuss salaries. But then you don't realize is that, dang, this guy came after me and has less experience. He makes more than me. What is going on? And so it becomes an opportunity to leverage. I've seen conversations on Twitter where Black women have said to maybe someone that they're in a position to hire or interview with, when you go in there, ask for this much.
I tell them all the time, listen, I have my young women from my STEM, I call them my STEM women, text me and stuff all the time. I be like, okay. And they're like, I never made that much before. I'm like, I don't care. That's how much the job is supposed to be paying. Right. You have been underpaid. This is what the job is supposed to pay. So this is what it is. And if they don't want to pay that, then you have to decide for yourself, how desperate are you right now? If you still have a current job, you're not desperate. So if you have a current job, and unless they are just breaking you down so bad mentally that you just can't take it another day, you can negotiate and you can give yourself enough love to ask for what you're worth. So I had a conversation with somebody that was trying to talk to me about a contract, right? Because I left corporate America, last year, and I'm, doing my own thing. And this person was like saying, well, how? They said, well, I'm looking here at your, because they asked me for a resume. I said, listen, I don't do resumes. I said, I am 53 years old. I have been in corporate. I have more than 30 years of corporate experience. You can look at my LinkedIn profile. You can have a conversation with me and talk about what I do. I said, if you want some kind of resume, I said, I don't know what to tell you. So I sent him like this little, I had my admin pull together like this little cover sheet that just had some, my experience in years, because I thought maybe that's what they wanted, whatever. Long story short, right? He sees on there that, I am a CEO, right, of my company, Radical Change. He sees on there, right, that I'm a curator of a think tank, right? He sees on there that I am the creator of a digital network, and he sees on there that I am a podcast and talk show host on Living Corporate. And he says to me, well, it looks like you have 4 full-time jobs. So how would you take a contract?
I mean, we are miracle workers, so
we are, but if I'm running it, what do you think that means?
Right. Right. I can do this. I got you.
Like I'm running it. It doesn't say I work for Pepsi, Coca-Cola, Sprite, and Mountain Dew. It says I own and operate these entities.
Right. I know how to move stuff around and make things,
Right? And that's how we get down, right? That is how we do things. And so the point around, the distractions, the point around that these politicians are the ones who allow these companies to make these laws, these rules. Because politicians, right, come up with the bills and the proposals and the propositions that are going to best benefit these companies. Because what people need to understand is that these CEOs and all these companies, they pay politicians to pass the laws that are going to benefit them. And those laws that are going to benefit them are usually, right, laws that are going to hurt employees.
Yeah, and it's so unfortunate. I don't know where the shift happened in our society, where employees have now become like pawns in this sort of, where they're last, where their feelings, their thoughts, their needs, their concerns are, put so far below profit, and that's why I love that I don't know if you've heard it, profit over people. Or people over profit.
People over profit. Yes, people over profit. No, the way they got it, that's how they got it now. That's how they got it now. No, I'm with you. That's how they got it now. Right? And that's what we got to turn around, because that's how they got it working. And so we have to do, we have to do that, do that same thing and really continue. Like, we have to push on it, because nobody is coming. And, I always think back to when Damon John came out with the FUBU, clothes back in the 80s. I said, for us, by us, because literally no one is coming. And we have got to, at some point, say, okay, we just gonna stand up, right? And don't be weak in the knees. And don't be weak in the knees, and just say, we gonna do it because it's important and it's the right thing. And we have got to do that. And even if we think, because I think one of the points of frustration for people is, I'm not going to be able to make a difference. It's just me, right? So whether we're talking about the voting conversation, or whether we are talking about trying to get active in our community, or whether we're talking about, trying to really do something, I think people feel like, oh, it's just me, and, I don't really have, that much of a voice, or, it's not going to have the same meaning. People need to understand that that's not true.
It's not. Again, the guy that unionized, that part of Amazon, I think it was on the East Coast. Folks that are out here doing the work, it almost always just take that one person to say, this isn't right. After the riots, and it's timely because April 30th is, the anniversary of the LA riots here in Los Angeles. Happened back in 1992. When we started to rebuild, it was, individuals a lot of times like, we don't want this in our communities anymore. We don't want liquor stores back here. They were part of the problem. We want other things. We don't want this. We don't want that. And they were able to push for a change. And again, going back to Karen Bass, her organization was one of those that was like, we don't want our communities to look the way that they did before the riots. We want to see different. And ultimately, it was, engaging community. And it does only sometimes take that one person to say something, because 9 times out of 10, that one person that says something, the person next to him is like, I was thinking the same thing. I thought it was just me, and it wasn't. And then you start to gain that momentum, and then that's how things happen. Because ultimately, it's hard to push against the establishment, the system. It's hard. So you got to come with other people, and ultimately, it is usually that one voice that inspires other people, and then something happens. So.
Yeah. I agree. And one of the things I'm trying to do, and I would love your help in this, is, when you, especially here of young people, teenagers and people, in the under 30 group, when they doing something, I feel like their voice, those are the people who need to be elevated and amplified and listened to, because literally this is their future world that we messing up. Right? This is their future world that we messing up. Right? Yeah. And I think all the time, in 30 years or 40 years, when everybody's walking around wearing gas masks and there's no damn trees and all the fruit is frozen from 15, 20 years ago in freeze dry stuff, and everybody eating food out of cans and boxes and bags and stuff. Our great grandkids gonna be like, damn, how y'all do us like that? How you do us like that? That's what they gonna say. They gonna say, how y'all do us like that? So I have one daughter who I know wants to be a mother one day. And so, I am fighting for her and for every other young person, unborn person that, wants to live in a clean earth that is not, I like to say, that don't have a whole bunch of harm and don't have a whole bunch of hate in it, right? Yeah. So can we just take some of the harm and the hate out the world? Just a little bit of it.
Just some of it. And I mean, I don't know. I hope we get to that day. But one thing you just said about moms and women in the future having babies, I mean, that's something else. That's a public health issue that we could even touch on as well. Like, we still have an African-American infant and maternal mortality problem in this country. And it's directly related to the social injustices in this country, the health inequities. And it's not just about the lack of health care access. No. Not that. It's not just that. It's the structure and systems in this society that place Black women in harm's way, their mental health, their economic, their situation. All of those things make it very, very hard to be healthy and safe during your pregnancy. And it's a real thing. People think, oh, that's just over there and the poor Black women. Mm-hmm. No, across the board, our infant, maternal, and mortality rates are horrible, abysmal. And it should be sounding every alarm everywhere in this country where, like, what is happening? But, nobody's really, I'm not going to say nobody, because I know our communities are rallying around. We have the doulas. Like, look, we just going to have our babies at home. We're going to take it back to the old school.
And that's what we have to do. Like, I keep on thinking about, you're on TikTok, right?
Yes.
Okay, so you know how they'll have like the little things, and they'll say things Black people do for no reason, right? Uh-huh. Okay, so one of the things I do that Black people do for no reason, and I probably do 20 of 30 of them. I do a lot of those things. One of the things I do for no reason, but obviously there is a reason because we do it, is when I want to go to sleep, I turn on boring TV. I turn on something that I have seen 1,000 times because it's like just background. But the radio doesn't work. And sometimes ocean sounds or rain, but not always. And it won't keep me like sleep all night. But if I turn on my iPad and I put on a boring show. So the boring show that works for me, and I've been doing it, since Netflix probably was invented, I've been doing it, is putting on, when I can't sleep, putting on Seinfeld, that show from the 90s, Jerry Seinfeld, because they talk in a monotone. First of all, they all talk like blah, blah, so it's not even interesting, right? But I've seen all the episodes, and I know what it's about, and I know that what that show did, that show is how white people act. That show is them. And so I can sleep to it. Because for me, I can sleep to it good. I mean, I just flip it on, boom. I click like season 2 or something early, because that way it can just keep on playing, and I sleep to it. But every now and then I'll wake up, or get up in the morning and it's on, and I'll be like, And and I think about how that distraction and how the way that whole show was designed, right? To, first of all, leave black people out, to leave any non-white person out, like we don't even exist in the biggest, most global community in the world, out of New York, which is the most global community in the world. People talking about London. New York is the most global city in the world. Yeah. But it wasn't no black people on the show that was on TV for 10 damn years. He had like 4 black characters that were all these weird, horrible stereotypes, right? Yeah. Had some Asian characters that were stereotypes, the really bad stereotypes of an Asian person, and that show did great, right? And that show was able to, transcend and make so much, and then make stars out of more people, including Chris Rock and other people, right? And so just to think about, the ease of manipulation of propaganda, to think about how it can keep us so distracted, but at the same time, those messages get built in so subliminally deep.
Yeah, they do. And it really speaks to this idea of the importance of representation and having diversity in any arts, TV, film, music. And when you don't see yourself represented, again, you start to, like you said, you watch something where there's no black people, and you're like, well, I mean, if an alien came and watched Seinfeld, they'd be like, well, do other people exist? Because you don't see it. It's so weird. But television has been like that for a very long time, actually, and only recently you start to see some of the more diverse perspectives shown on television. It's really interesting. Even in magazines and things, now you start to see more representation, but it's mind-boggling how some of the stuff that we are shown or presented, and we do absorb a lot of that. We do. Absolutely.
And the thing that's interesting is it all, I don't think there's any tentacle of the conversation that doesn't point back to politics, because even if we look at media, and so I guess maybe about 2 months ago I was doing some research, and I was on YouTube for 3 days straight, just looking for things and trying to understand certain things with the algorithm, just doing all this research, and I started seeing so much advertisements for things that are not real products, things that would never work, like weird diet solutions, and popping up on YouTube, but it looked like news. It looked like a news article. Yep. And so I was thinking to myself, well, shit, if somebody wasn't paying attention, if they didn't know, no, you can't lose 40 pounds by drinking anything. No beverage can make you lose 40. That's just not a thing. Right. Or whatever. And when I started seeing all these propagandas or whatever, and I said to myself, this is only allowed because of law and because of media. Why would you allow people to advertise, to sell things as health cures that don't work? Yeah. That's the politicians. Again, and that's our public health. So imagine a person who maybe is struggling with, some weight or other health issues, that finds some kind of miracle cure on the internet, tries it, even if it doesn't work, but it's a waste of their money, a waste of their hope, a waste of their time, it's definitely going to be an impact to their mental health, right? Yeah. And that seems to me like all of those, it's now over these past 2 conversations, I feel like there is no area, that there's not a way to correlate it to an impact on public health, which then is going to have an impact on individual health.
Yeah.
Am I feeling it right? Am I understanding it right?
Yeah. I mean, and health literacy is a thing. I don't know if people know that or if you know that health literacy.
Yes.
So being able to read is one thing, but health literacy is another thing. Again, how do you look at an advertisement and be able to tell that this is, you know, reputable or not? And some people don't have that skill set. So they're actually, you know, by my profession, I'm a health educator. I was trained to be able to teach people how to understand health information. I was trained to work in communities, develop programs. So, you know, one thing that a person that has my educational background will be able to help them figure that out. There are whole programs in certain health departments that focus on, you know, helping people debunk certain myths, or, hey, this advertisement about a COVID cure is not true. That we are having to do a lot of that work so that people are informed, because if you are desperate and your loved one is sick, or you're sick and you know you got to go to work tomorrow, and if you don't use your job and you see an ad for a COVID cure, you may be well inclined to do, you know, so it's like we have to do a lot of work to try to undo some of those harms around false advertising, because they don't care. They will put out all kind of stuff to deceive people, to, you know, free COVID test, and you look around, where's the COVID test? But they got your name and all your personal information. So how do you tell what's a real COVID testing site versus something that's deceptive? So a lot of that is about health literacy, and it's also about just making sure we inform people on, you know, what's real and what's not. And it can be hard because there's so many different messages coming to us from so many different places. It can be hard to tell the difference.
It can be, but I love that, and I think this is a perfect place to wrap up, because I think what we should do is we should figure out how we want to take people on a little a health literacy journey, right? And maybe what are the 3 things, you know, and next time we get together, we'll dive into that for people so that they can start to think about it. Because even if I think about, you know, those of us, you know, that have access to the internet and maybe work in these situations, but what about you trying to talk to your nana or your granny or you know, somebody's uncle or whatever, right? You need to be able to do that. So let's talk about that next time. My dog's going ham over here, so I'm going to be out. So thank you so much, and everybody tune in soon. We'll see you again. Bye.